All right, would like to now introduce the man, the myth, the Matthew, to now introduce this year's Sense 302 project, Lens Folio.
What an introduction. Do I follow that? All right, well, very warm welcome to you all, friends and family especially. Today I'm going to be giving a quick bit of a run through about what it is that we have been doing this year in Sense 302. So first of all, a quick look at what Sense 302 is as a course. And it may perhaps be better to look at what it isn't, because it is not your average course. First of all, there are no lectures. It's a whole year group project. I'm sure everyone has very fond memories from the first couple years of uni doing some group projects, and we decided at third year you can do one for the whole year. So teams start off initially in groups of about 3 to 4, then we shortly combine 2 of these groups to form one bigger team of between 6 and 8, and then these teams work together for the whole year. They get to go through all the trials and tribulations as one and see what they can produce along the way. Now, experience-based learning is a big part of Sense 302. We have lots of papers and lots of courses before Sense 302, and even while students are taking Sense 302, that are all about learning theory and learning how things can be done. Then when Sense 302 is often the first time that there is actually a large amount of effort dedicated to putting this theory into practice. And in particular, this is where we learn what the differences are between the theoretical ideal and the real world. For instance, mistakes. Mistakes happen a lot. Everyone makes them. It's how we learn. It's not always the most comfortable process, but it is certainly an important one. And we hope we've set up Sense 302 in such a way as to maximize the potential for making mistakes. I think we have. And also living with your decisions. In many assignments, it is so easy to just do whatever you need to do, pull it together, get it across the line. But in Sense 302, you can do that, and it works, and it is sometimes the right decision. But then 6 months later, when you're still dealing with that decision you made, it's a whole new kind of learning, one that you absolutely experience in the real world, and one that hopefully we have prepared you for slightly this year. And for better or for worse, there are no assignments, no tests, no exams in Sense 302. Certainly at this stage in the year, hopefully you can appreciate that somewhat. Right, now in terms of the learning in Sense 302, there are 2 main parts to this. First, obviously, technical stuff, domain skills. You write code, you write a lot of code, you design an entire software application. I'm sure along the way you figure out lots of ways not to design a software application, and hopefully towards the end you figure out some ways that work a bit better. And also learning how to automate quality controls, deal with the Scrum framework, that kind of thing. But, we have other courses for that. What we really learn in Sense 302 that it's so hard to learn in any other paper is the more qualitative skills, the soft skills. Teamwork, conflict resolution. When you're dealing with 7 other people for the whole year, you're not always going to agree. And that's fine, and that happens. But we need to figure out how to work through that, how to push the project forwards. Communication not only with your team, with fellow developers, but also non-technical stakeholders. When Moffat pretends he doesn't know the difference between a database and a web API, and you need to try and convince him why you should be allowed to spend more time fixing things that he thought you already did 3 months ago. It's a challenge. Time management, I think many people have commented on this. In other papers, again, if you do all the work the night before, it doesn't really matter. In Sense 302, it's a lot harder to do. Learning how to learn. We intentionally throw a lot of very difficult technologies, very new things that we expect no one has really encountered before 302. And we do this on purpose, because that's what happens in the real world. That's what happens in industry. And so learning how to pick something up from scratch, figuring out what helps you to learn, what doesn't, is a really big part of what we do in 302. And self-efficacy. I think it's been really cool for me getting to see so many people this year become more confident in what it is that they can do, and actually realize that if they give something a go, they can do really well. So that's been really cool to see. Now, learning from experience. 302 is first and foremost a playground where you get to put into practice and experience the things you have been hearing about for so long at university. Now, there's two main kinds of learning that comes with this experience: accidental learning and intentional. So the accidental learning, this happens to everyone every day. As you do things, you learn. That's how our brains work. But it's not always very focused, and it's not usually very directed in terms of trying to learn something in particular. Whereas in Sense 302, ideally, we get more towards this intentional learning, where we've set a goal, we know what it is that we want to learn, we make a plan for how to do that. We can reflect on our experiences, and through that reflection, figure out what worked, what didn't, where to go to next. And ideally, it is a much faster and more focused form of learning. So this poses the question, how can we support more of this intentional side of learning rather than the accidental? And this brings us to this year's project, the Lens Folio, an application designed for students in group project courses like Sense 302. So, I'm not going to go too deep into what the Lens Folio is. I will leave that up to all of our teams who can do a much better job than I. But there are a few parts to this. The software application that is intended to help students in courses like 302 be more intentional about their learning, make plans, and adjust their behaviour and learning to suit those. So first of all, we have a planner. Any good plan starts with figuring out when it needs to happen, what it should be like. So a planner, very important part of doing that. The portfolio. As students go throughout the year, they work across a variety of skills. They learn many things, and we want a way to support students tracking these and kind of building up a portfolio that they can take with them into industry, that they can just use for their own learning of what it is that they've covered and what they learned from that. To back up the portfolio, we have evidence. It's all well and good to say that you've learned something, I've done something, but actually being able to justify that in a way that is not only useful to you, but can be useful to others who are looking to see what it is you've done and how that went. And finally, some form of encouragement so that we are actually enjoying using the application so that there is an incentive to go further into it. And all of this with the goal of one day being used by future Sense 302 students. So, enough from me. Let's get into the reason we're all here. Could we have the first team up? Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.